Gen X grew up on late-night warnings.
It's 10 p.m. Do you know where your children are?
Scared, straight.
This is your brain. This is drugs. This is your brain on drugs. Any questions?
And were inspired by movies that defined a generation.
We were all pretty bizarre. Some of us are just better at hiding it, that's all.
Hey, Doc, we better back up. We don't have enough road to get out to 88.
Roads? Where we're going, we don't need roads.
I feel the need for speed.
We found our attitude in comedy.
I'm Gumby, damn it!
You see that sign?
No shirt, no shoes,
No dice!
Right. Learn it. Know it. Live it.
And our identity in pop culture.
I want my MTV!
I want my MTV.
I want my MTV!
What you talking about, Willis?
Keep your feet in the ground and keep reaching for the stars.
This is Gen X Men with Bill Rowland and Gary Dollarhide.
Life moves pretty fast. You don't stop and look around once in a while, you could miss it.
All right, welcome in. This is episode number 10, the Big X of Gen X Men, Bill Rowland and Gary Dollarhide. I'm here in Northern Virginia. He is there in Central Maine. I'm assuming you're still there in Central Maine.
Still here. We pack up and we'll move to our winter quarters this Tuesday.
Okay.
Because we notice if you get into late next week, the nighttime temperatures drop down to 5 and 4. So,
oh my God,
we are going to be out of here to somewhere not necessarily warmer because of some things this year, but definitely more bearable for the winter for us.
Yeah, it makes total sense. Makes total sense. It was 72 here yesterday. It's going to be 45 here today. So that's why I've got the sound again of a bit of a cold, perhaps, because I just got back from Daytona. Most people who probably watch and listen to this know that I work with George Mason. We were down there for a tournament. It was beautiful, 70s plus every single day. Got back here. It was still nice, 72, but now it's 40. It's going to be 45.
Yep. And see, for us today, it's 43, but sunny. And we're all going, wow, what a great day today's going to be.
Well, I'm gonna it's sunny. It's gonna be sunny here. I'm gonna be out as the turkey is cooking. We are recording this on Thanksgiving, so happy late Thanksgiving, everybody out there who's listening, because this probably will not get up by the time that you're listening for your listening pleasure. It's your Thanksgiving meal, but yeah, it's gonna be yard work all day today. That's what I'm gonna do.
Yep, we're doing this, and then we're gonna head down because our little town holds a town Thanksgiving meal. It's nice. Everyone brings something, and
just
we all crowd
in. The Native Americans, the Pilgrims, and the Native Americans. Nice. Are you wearing the headdress? What are you going to do?
I am not wearing the headdress. I will wear a cowboy hat just so I stick out in the crowd.
There you go.
So yeah, it's town wide. I mean, there's only 780 total people in the actual town. Maybe 100 show up to this. Everyone brings a side item. The town buys the turkeys, and we get into town hall and just sit around and eat.
That's pretty cool.
It is pretty neat.
That's a nice little tradition that they have there, and it kind of leads into what we were thinking about for this show, and that is the Gen X fascination, if you will, with nostalgia. And it's an interesting thing because I have some theories on why it is, or I think it's just because we're now at that age, and maybe 20 years from now, it's going to be the millennials that are all the nostalgia people, because that's just, I think, how it rolls along. I think maybe 20 years ago, it might have been our parents, the baby boomers, that were all that they thought were the most nostalgic generation. But we've got some stats here. You pulled these up either from Facebook or X or somewhere, but it says that Gen X is the most nostalgic generation. 80% of Gen X feels nostalgic at least once a week, and we are the most emotionally affected by it. Now, my theory on this is, in some ways, it's just the fact that we realize now, because the oldest of us, Gen X, turned 60 this year. Okay. That's about the time, which means the youngest of us is 45. That's about the time you start really going, hey, you know what? My time on this planet, I'm on the back nine. It's, and so I think that's when you start going, man, remember when we were this young and I was still able to do this and everything. I think that's what it is more than just our generation. Maybe I'm wrong on it, but I just feel like we're now at that place in time where we're starting to realize again, even if you and I both live to 100, we still have less time on this planet than we already occupy. Odds are we're both not living to 100, so we've got way less time than we've already occupied on this earth, which isn't necessarily a bad thing. It is what it is. I'm kind of excited to see what's on the other side, to be honest with you. So it's just one of those things that's where I think the nostalgia factor comes from. About, I don't know that I get emotional about being nostalgic. I mean, I'll hear a song and be like, oh yeah, I remember. I mean, I do that all the time, but everybody does that with songs. But it's not like I get emotional and break down or anything.
Yeah, no, I don't get emotional breakdown. There are certain things I go, oh, it was so much nicer back then. And again, that's, I think, a standard person of our age, our parents' age. You just reach that point of this newfangled stuff is just not good. Right? That's what you get. I mean, I was with my wife and the doctors yesterday. Yes, it was yesterday. And there was an older gentleman, probably in his 70s there. And there was a picture of kids on the wall, Norman Rockwell playing marbles. And he was just going, kids don't play marbles or any fun games anymore. They just look at those darn screens. And I'm like, it's the old man in you. Who cares? It's, you know, I look at it objectively like, well, yeah, because back when that picture was probably painted, that's what everyone did. Yeah, and probably the adults then were like, these kids just play with marbles instead of out there shoeing horses or something.
We had a stick and a wheel.
Yeah.
Push that around. Yeah.
So I'll look at it as two parts. Statistically, we've only really done social statistics for the past 50 years. Prior to that, no one knew anything. No one paid attention, right? So if you look at it, it's probably the baby boomers than us, where science has paid attention to us to go, hey, how do you feel about this? How do you feel about that? And so that's why we get these numbers. But I agree with you. I think it's just an age thing. It's not that we are more nostalgic. It's just they're hitting us at the right time where we start to go, oh yeah. And like you said, because we're seeing the end coming, right? The light at the end of the tunnel is heading right for us. So that changes our perspective, which in turn, when you do these social science studies, we're going, oh yeah, we're more nostalgic, but we're probably really not. Now, I will say there may be a disconnect in the future. I think there is a generational difference. When I talk to my son and stepsons, they do have a different worldview than we had. I don't know if they're going to be nostalgic for this period in their life 40 years from now, but maybe they're just, how do I say this? I'd say they're less emotional than we are. So I don't, at least right now, don't see them caring. It's what's the next new thing is kind of where they are.
Well, here's my question. And I had this brief discussion because, again, everybody looks at me like I'm insane. I think in some ways it is intentional that they don't want, say, Gen Z, Gen Alpha, or whatever, feeling any kind of connection to their older relatives at all. They tell you all the time, oh, those stories, they don't mean it. They don't. I feel like it's almost intentional that if you don't have a link to your past, like, I don't know how other Gen X people feel. I find it fascinating, and maybe it's just me, and I always have, like, knowing my relatives on my mom's side came over on the second boat after the Mayflower. So we were on, I think it was called the Marion John. So now we're not original Americans, but you're close. Like, they landed in New England. They've all throughout. One of my way back relatives on my mom's side again was I think the first name was John Rockwell, who, like, basically in Massachusetts and everything, like, he was one of the leaders of the Massachusetts colony and everything else. So I always find it fascinating. I'm always like, I wonder what that's like. And for, to go back there and think, like, that dude has no idea that 300, 400 years later on that I'm going to be here. Yeah. And that I look back and go, that took some guts, some balls to get on a boat from England and come here. I don't know that they encourage, like, Gen Alpha, Gen Z to look back on their history like that anymore. It's almost like they've told you, yeah, those people did that, but you don't want to be like them because they were terrible people, because they may have had slaves. So they want to like disparage your lineage, your history, so that you don't want to connect with it at all. And I think it's a terrible thing.
Yeah. I can agree with you on the political slant that there is a bit of the whole, we want to look back and say everything was horrible.
Right.
That's what the push is. Like, instead of, to me, the logical is, yeah, maybe some things weren't great. Maybe some things got fixed along the way, because that's what we do. But let's not trash everything from the past because it was bad. And I think there is a push to that, to kind of ignore history in a way. And I think I see that in some of the kids. They just, having discussions with coworkers, and my kids who are about the same age as some, they just, history, what? It just doesn't matter to them. And I assume there is a push that just, we're always looking forward. We're not going to talk about the past because somebody said it's bad.
Right.
And again, my theory is, well, yeah, we can accept what was wrong and keep trying to fix things, but to just completely ignore it and try to detach from it, I think is the mistake as well. I agree with you.
Yeah, and I think, and I know, look, I'm not the one that's made this argument. I agree with it. But when you start judging people 50, 100, and now we're talking 200-300 years ago by the standards and morals of today, you're making a huge mistake, because again, you'll be dead and you won't know. But what are people going to say 100 years from now about our generation?
Yeah.
What are they going to look at and say, oh my God, why did they think this in 2010, 2020, whatever it was? I mean, I have my ideas on what they're going to say, but we don't have to get into that because we're not trying to do politics. But trust me, I have plenty of ideas of they're going to look back and be like, what were they doing 100 years from now? And that's what we're doing to these people. That's what we're doing to 100, 200, 300, 400 years. Going, what were they doing? Well, they were living their lives as they did back then. Like,
Well, and I'll delve into the politics for a moment, because I've had these discussions with my son, who's had slightly more liberal upbringing than I did here in Maine. It is what it is. It's that generation. You mentioned something about history, and you'll see him turn his nose and be like, well, and I said, you need to stop, because people lived with what they knew then at the time.
Right.
They didn't have computers. Their day was spent of, how are we going to eat at some, for some people, a lot of people, let's go back to 1700s, even 1800s. How are we going to survive today? What am I going to eat? What do I need to fix? And how are we going to survive today? They didn't have these, as I tell him, these big mental breaks of vacation. And, if we do this, what happens to that did not exist for these people. So you cannot hold that against them for not having the same mindset you do, because it was, as we say, a completely different world back then. It was pure survival.
Right.
And, structurally, there were some things that maybe weren't acceptable today, but they knew no better. And it's not that they were dumb. It was just what their world was. I said, people did not take baths, Tommy, to my son.
Right.
And he kind of looks at me and said, you just didn't. They didn't believe in germs. There was no running water. They didn't. That's all they knew. So no one thought it was bad.
Right.
And it took for generations later to figure some of these things out.
Yeah. I mean, just think about how long it was before you had regular running water, regular sewer systems that we just completely, accept and just kind of go, oh yeah, that's always been a thing. Well, it has been for us growing up, and clearly for them growing up. But I mean, I can remember going on hunting trips with my dad, and the place that they had didn't have like a regular bathroom. You went to an outhouse.
Correct.
And that, I mean, again, maybe that kind of made me realize even back then, like, oh, this was normal just like 40 years ago. No one thought anything different. So that'd have been like the 1930s. So this was in like the 70s, early 80s when I was, going hunting. I was like, I can't imagine, like, again, it's hunting, it's deer season. So it's like November, December, in Virginia. Now, it's not that in Maine as far as cold goes. But I tell you what, you didn't want to get up in the middle of the night and be like, I got to go take a leak and walk outside when it's 15 degrees to go to the outhouse.
Yeah.
But that was reality for everyone. I mean, I can remember at my grandmother's in Maine that she had one bathroom. It was on the main level of the house. The kids used to all stay upstairs. She had 2 or 3 bedrooms up in the upper level. And to make it so that the kids wouldn't have to come down the stairs and, because my grandfather, who died when I was 5, so I don't really remember him that much, but their bedroom was basically right next to the bathroom. So to make sure that, the kids weren't stumbling around and making noise and everything else, we literally had a chamber pot in the bedroom. So if you had to pee in the middle of the night, you would get up and use this pot, and then you carried it down the next day, dumped it in the toilet, and flushed it. This was in the 1970s and early 80s. This was still going on for them. They had chamber pots.
Yeah.
That would have been standard operating procedure just maybe 40, 50 years prior, and you wouldn't have tossed it into a toilet and flushed it. You would have taken it out to the outhouse, or maybe even just tossed it out who knows?
Correct.
But that would have been standard operating procedure. People don't understand that. And it's just accepted. This is the way it's always been. No, not even close. Less than 100 years ago.
I mean, we were talking about just surviving. I mean, we're 2025. If you go back to 1925 and before, I don't have the exact stats, but you have to understand that most of the country was still rural.
Yeah.
Let's say 1920, without houses, not a lot of like the world was completely different.
Yes.
And so therefore you can't hold things against them, because again, they were living and surviving in the world that was provided to them. There was no, we're going to fix this, we should be doing that. Those things come along. It takes generations for a lot of things. We see it in medical all the time. For us, with some of the medical things we do, it's, we used to do this, and then we went away from it, and then more research, and now we're going back. So everything's in flux. So again, to hold people from long ago captive to what would be not a good standard in today's items is just wrong. But it happens, and like you said, they are trying to drive in a way. I think we're trying to whitewash the past, if you will, and across the board. I mean, I'm not just being political, but anything old is bad, and we just ignore it and move forward. And I think that's what's happening societal wise.
And I think it's kind of fascinating too, because I think a lot of it had to do with the gas crisis. I'm sure you remember in the 70s having to wait in line depending on what the last digit or whatever it was on your parents' car's license plate and all that stuff. But I mean, I can remember I really was big, loved the music of the 60s, the Motown, the Beatles, all that stuff. Loved all that stuff. Was never one of these guys that liked, the AC/DCs and, the harder rock that kind of came out of the 70s. Certainly didn't like any of the disco stuff. Now, it comes on, you listen to it, you're like, yeah, okay, I know ABBA, Dancing Queen, whatever, but was never like a Bay City Rollers guy or anything like that. But I can remember the cars of the 60s and the music and all that kind of stuff. It was cool. I loved the cars, the 60s Corvettes, the Mustangs. Camaros were okay, in my opinion. But I can't imagine now. So, when we were able to drive, you're talking about the mid to late 80s. So you're going back 20-some years. I don't know that kids that are 16, 17, 18 today are going to look back to 2005 and be like, oh, that was really good music in the mid 2000s and listen to it I don't know if you did, but I mean, I listened to the Beatles constantly, all that kind of stuff, Motown stuff. It was the only station I could get on the AM radio that I had in my 65 Mustang that I ended up buying as a car. So I just don't see them looking back and going, 2005, man, they had some great cars back then. It just doesn't exist. And when we were growing up, the cars that they were making in the late 70s and early 80s, let's be honest,
Horrible.
frankly, they sucked. They were terrible.
Horrible.
Yeah. So I
Big,
mean
super
that's why
boxy.
that's why we wanted older cars, because they were cooler looking. I don't know what happened other than the gas crisis, and they're like, oh, we got to make these cars that get these incredible miles per gallon, so no more muscle cars. But the cars of the mid 70s to the mid to late 80s were horrific. The Gremlin, the AMC Pacer, terrible, just terrible.
I remember neighbors, friends of my parents, they had a Thunderbird.
Oh,
And if you go, well, no, not the 50s, 60s Thunderbird, right?
Okay.
This was the big late 70s, early 80s. This thing was a mile long, boxed out, you know, and you just looked at it and go, oh. And it was green with a tan vinyl roof.
Oh,
I mean,
yeah. Yep.
And I would look at it and just go, that thing is just an ugly piece of junk. I mean, it wasn't junk, but there was nothing, like you said, if you go back to the 50s, 60s, I'd even go back to some of the 30s and 40s.
Oh, yeah. If you're doing your hot rods.
Yeah. I mean, just designs were different and they looked better. And then everything in that window that you're talking about became kind of the square, boxy. I'm not sure. Utilitarian. I don't know if we got Soviet designers in and all of a sudden that's what we were doing. I don't know. It just seemed funny. And then, everything kind of changed again. We kind of went back to the bubble aerodynamics, late 80s, 90s. And maybe it was the gas mileage issue and saving gas that we said, hey, we can't drive big squares around anymore. I mean, another family up the street, I mean, they had one of those huge station wagons, right?
Oh, yeah, we had one of those.
Yeah, you just throw the kids in the back, no seatbelts, but and just ride them all around. But that thing was huge, and it was a tank coming down the road. So,
yeah,
kids today, they just, I don't know what it is. And like I said, it's not just my son. I see it with the stepkids too. They just, whatever. They really are kind of this clinical, non-emotional, that's just how they see a lot of things. They just don't get worked up and nothing means much. And, what's next? And
I just,
to a certain extent, I like that. And to other times, it's like you said, I just go, you're kind of missing out,
Yeah, I mean, and again, I think it's done in somewhat intentional for them to be like, you don't need to have a connection to your past. You don't even need to have a connection to your parents. I mean, honestly, it's kind of like, your parents, they're old. They don't know what they're talking about, hang out. And we all had that moment where we're like, oh, my parents are so outdated or whatever. But it was never to the point of like, you can't trust them for anything, or you don't need to speak to them. I mean, it never was to that point. I feel like some of the younger generation, that's what it is.
So funny you bring that up.
Okay.
Just this morning, and I kind of skimmed it and kind of laughed. It was on X, and they were talking about the disconnect from generations currently going on. Oprah did a special sometime, I don't know, the past week or something. Anyway, that's what brought it all up. And they were saying how these people were happier. They have no connection to their family. Oh, we haven't talked in 3 years. And they were kind of glorifying it in this segment I saw. And as people said, there are reasons you may not want to have a connection to your family. If there was abuse or something like that.
Sure.
But these were mostly just normal people said, yeah, I don't have much in common with them, so we really don't talk, and that's okay. And you hear these stories 2, 3, 4, 5 years of just not talking. Forget uncles and great uncles and distant. This was immediate family situations where they were just like, yeah, we just don't talk. And then one of the things they said was, well, we're going back to the way it used to be way back when, because, and their story was, we're probably talking the 19th century. People would leave home and you just wouldn't see your kids again. They just might send you letters of what was happening in the world, but that was about it. And they were trying to say this was the norm we're going back to. And I don't know if I quite agree with that as much.
I mean, it's probably true if you were 19 years old in 1849 and you said, you know what? Gold rush. I'm headed to California. You probably didn't see your parents ever again. No different than when they got on the boat in England or
Mhm.
Ireland or wherever and came here, you probably did not go back to England at any point.
Yeah.
You probably never saw those people again.
Yep.
I mean, to a certain extent, that still happens, I think, for some people. I mean, I talk to the guys all the time that are from other countries on the basketball team. I was talking to one of the guys, he's from Slovenia, and we were chatting in the airport yesterday. And I said, how long does it take you to get home? Like when you fly back? Like, I can't imagine. I said, I'm not trying to insult your country. I can't imagine there are direct flights from New York to Slovenia. And he's laughing. He goes, oh, no. He goes, we have to go through either Germany. He like named off a bunch of countries, depending on what it was. And it was like 14 hours.
Mhm.
And he's like, and then you go, there's like a 6 or 7 hour time difference. He's like, you basically lose a day or two just in travel and everything else. He's like, so I don't get home. He's like, he goes, that's why I haven't been home, because it's too hard. And I was like, man, I couldn't picture. I mean, again, good for him. Like, I'm going to pursue my dream of playing basketball and getting an education here in the United States at the detriment of seeing my parents for maybe once or twice a year. That's all he sees them.
Yeah.
His parents are not at games. He's not going home for, obviously, Thanksgiving. Well, none of the guys are going home for Thanksgiving, but you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
I don't even know that he's going to go home at Christmas time. Like,
Right.
he just doesn't have time.
Because even
So-
worst case scenario, some of the other guys, their parents could drive the 2, 3, 4 hours and show up in Fairfax to see their
Right.
kids if they wanted,
Right.
Like,
Exactly.
that option's on the table. But for him,
Exactly.
yeah, he's not going to see them. I mean, fortunately, he has FaceTime or other
Right.
capabilities
So, I mean,
now.
it is different in that regard, but it is kind of the same of just like, okay, we're packing up the wagons and heading west. And look, back then, you could have died 3 days into the trip from whatever, wild animal, Native Americans. I mean, you don't know. That happened all the time to people. Just like, what happened to Jimmy? Well, Jimmy was in.
We never heard from him.
Jimmy got attacked in the wagon train and they didn't make it out. I mean, that happened. But,
Oh, absolutely. But I also don't buy the fact those are examples and they are true. But you wouldn't have the stories like the Hatfields and the McCoys and the things I knew from growing up in Virginia.
Right.
These families have been here for a while. Well, they didn't all leave. One or two kids may have left, like certain
Right.
ones may have left, but a lot of people stayed near family. They would
Yeah, you had
intermarry
to.
this family, that family, and now they're in the farm 4 miles away.
Yeah.
So didn't totally buy this, oh, this is the way it used to be, that storyline. But for some people, yes. But I think the majority of people still congregated around where they
Absolutely.
grew up and had families. So them trying to say now, oh yeah, this is just normal. Don't talk to your family. I rolled my eyes like, I can't believe that. And it's so funny that came up this morning when you just said, hey, they're trying to push us away from our past, including
Yeah.
family.
I firmly believe that. I think it's intentional through social media and everything else. I think there are people, and again, everybody's gonna say, put your tinfoil hat on. Okay, fine. But you know what? A lot of stuff that they talked about before, they were right. So I mean, it is what it is. All right, let me give you another one of these stats, and you can tell me if you think this is true. This says we are the most loyal to brands of all the generations, millennial, X, baby boomers, everything, 50 to 70%. That's a large number spread.
Yeah.
50 to 70% of Gen Xers report being fairly or very loyal to a brand. Are you loyal to a brand? Is there one thing that you look at and go, I don't care what it is, I'm always buying this?
I'm thinking here. I don't. No, I can't think of anything right now, top of my head, that it's either this or nothing.
Right.
Like, to me, it's always what's available, what's affordable. I mean, there's obviously brands I go, ooh, if they have it, I would like it, but I can't think of anything where I have to have Nike shoes or
Right.
People may not Duluth trading jeans. Like, I don't think of anything that I know of right now that says I have to have that.
Yeah,
And
I'm kind of the same way. Like, I only now a lot of it again is, as you said, price, and you get used to something. Like, I think the only jeans that I have are Levi's, but that's because they're relatively inexpensive. Maybe not compared to some of the other, brands, but they're way cheaper than like Lucky Brand or and the other stuff. And I don't need quote unquote designer jeans. So
Correct.
I have Levi's and a couple different colors and fades and everything, and that's fine. I mean, I guess if I go into like a 7-Eleven and I'm like, I want to get a drink, I'll get the Coke before I grab a Pepsi.
Correct. Yes.
But if I'm at a restaurant, I'm not one of these people that's like, do you have, hey, I want to get a Coke. And they go, is Pepsi okay? And I go, fine. I mean, you know what I mean? Like, I know people that are like that. They're like, if they don't have Coke, they'll just drink something else. They won't drink the Pepsi. And I'm sure there are people that are the other way as well. I'm not that way when it comes to brands. Like if they're like, I'll be like, hey, do you have, Diet Coke, Coke Zero, whatever. And like, no, all we have are Pepsi products. I'm like, okay, do you have Diet Pepsi? Yes, that's fine. Yeah. I'm like, it's fine. So
unless they pre-announce it, which some restaurants do, or I see on the menu, I just go, hey, can you get me the diet of whatever brand you're serving?
Sure. Right.
Because it doesn't matter to me. There's nothing. I mean, I recognize brands like I know, let's say in tools, DeWalt is better than Ryobi.
Sure.
I have a lot of Ryobi stuff, right?
Yeah.
But I'm not like clamoring that, it's like you said, it's this or nothing. I just don't have anything that I'm aware of that reaches that. And my question on that stat is, should we break it out male versus female? Because I think that's where you might find the greater divide on brand loyalty. Because I just think women are more loyal in certain ways to, I like this, I like this makeup and I like this store to shop in. That's where I think it comes into. Versus
I think
us
you're
guys are like, hey, give me a pair of jeans.
Yeah.
So.
I think you're right. And I mean, as I've said, I've my entire adult life, I've had nothing but Chevrolet cars. But you know why that is? It's because I'm friends with the lady who owns the dealership and she's a big Mason person. So, I mean, I've known her for a long, long time now, over 30 years. I coached her daughter in high school basketball. So I know it's not that that I think Chevy's the best car necessarily, but I know I can walk in there and be like, hey, this is what I want to pay. What can you put me in? She's not cutting me some big, huge break, but I know that if there's a problem with the car, I can go to the owner and get it taken care of. I'm not going to have to go through all this rigmarole with the service person and everything else. But I drove a Ford in high school and in college. Like I said, I had the Ford Mustang. So it's not like my loyalty is because, Chevy's better than Ford. You have those people that's either you're a Ford or Chevy person. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Like, I don't care. I like a lot of the old Ford cars. Like I said, the Ford Mustang is amazing. But I like the Chevy Corvette from back in the day. I've never owned one, but I love them. I think they're great looking. Mm-hmm. There are some other cars that I think look tremendous that aren't Ford or Chevy. But it's just, a lot of them are out of your price range. I would get a Tesla if it made sense. But until I can drive 350 miles on a charge and then get recharged in 5 minutes like I can do with my car when I stop at the gas station and fill up and it takes me 5 minutes, I can't drive an electric car.
Mm-hmm.
Doesn't make any sense. So it's not like I hate those brands. My lifestyle doesn't work.
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you my 3 last vehicles. I had a brand new Mazda CX-5 because it fit the bill at the time. After that, because of some things I was doing changing, I ended up with a Dodge Ram 1-ton pickup with
there you go.
Kit, right? And then once that blew up, I am now in a 2025 Kia Niro Hybrid.
Right.
So right there's your gamut. Not brand loyal, just what makes sense at the time, what's practical, what do I need, and there we go.
Exactly. I mean,
I'm like you. Would I like a Tesla? Sure, but there's some impracticality to it, like you said, about the charging and.
Well, and you being up there in Maine, how well do those batteries do in the cold?
So, because one of the son-in-laws works for Tesla.
Oh, nice.
Newer models, it's fine because they actually have a heat pump installed inside of them. So they do fairly well in cold weather. That was one of the design modifications they had to make for the northern U.S. and other cold weather climates. Yeah, so if you get a newer one, you're okay.
because I know my uncle who lives up there, my aunt and uncle that are up there near you in central Maine. They used to have to. I remember being up there at Christmas time, and it was the first time I'd ever seen somebody plug their car in. And I don't mean like an electric car. I mean like an engine block heater type thing where you plugged it in. And I was like, what is this? And they're like, well, if you don't, then the engine will freeze up overnight and it won't work.
Yep.
I was like, okay.
Yep. That's
good.
very common with diesel engines.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
the
And they may
diesel
have
will
been.
gel, the fuel will gel out. and
Right.
Freeze up your block. But some regular cars, some people do it, not so much anymore. But yeah, I mean, if you go down the road here to the school, you'll see all the buses. They line them up, and they're all plugged in overnight during the winter. Yep.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it probably was. It might have been a diesel. I just remember seeing the engine block plugged in, and I was like, interesting. Okay. All right. Here's another one for you, and we can debate this as well. About 92% of Gen X has a Facebook account. 78% are on Instagram. 74% on YouTube. Well, clearly we're on YouTube because it's where we're posting this up. I am on Instagram. I use it so infrequently. I mean, I'll check it, but I'm not posting there hardly at all. And as far as Facebook goes, I've been on Facebook for over a decade.
Good for you.
Yeah. Don't care.
Yep. I am on Facebook. You post nothing. You're not going to see what I had for dinner. You're not going to see where I was last week. It's probably been dead in that realm for probably 6 or 7 years at this point. I just reached the point of, why are we doing this? So Facebook now is for me to see what family and or certain friends who are on there who do those things, so I can keep up with what's happening. And for the most part, it's for marketplace, because there's a lot of neat things that you can buy, like animals and tractors and things like that on Facebook Marketplace. So that's why it's there for me. Instagram, I think I have an account because it's all part of the Facebook system, but I don't go there, don't really pay attention. I don't even know what the draw of it is, honestly. And then for YouTube, we're on it. And honestly, I find YouTube to be one of the most entertaining things out there just for informational videos. I've learned to fix some things from YouTube that, hey, thanks to YouTube, I saved a bunch, replacing the truck headlight that I had on the Dodge Ram, right? Dealer wanted $600 to put a new headlight in for me. I went on YouTube, bought the headlight unit for $60, learned where all the bolts were, because some of them are hidden, right? We engineer these things so well now. But yeah, that's why I love YouTube. It's a source of, it's like the encyclopedia, but in video style for me now.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I can remember you used to have to go. And again, I had an older Mustang when I was in high school and college. The car was over 20 years old, on to 30. And you used to have to go to like your regular, AutoZone or whatever it was and buy the manual.
The Chilton's manuals. Yes.
To know where everything was and how to replace things if you needed to. Now, my dad, again, because in the time he grew up, he was born in 1938. So like he was doing like in the 50s, you fixed the car yourself. If you had to take it to a mechanic, you were in a lot of trouble. So he just was a car guy. He grew up knowing all that stuff. So I knew how to I know where the oil pan is. I know how to change the oil, do the filter and everything else. But then there are other things that you're like, okay, not quite sure how this works or whatever it is. So you'd have to go and get the manual. Well, now your manual is YouTube and guys that know how to do that stuff. And that was one of the first things that I can remember being like, okay, where is when you get a newer car, where is the cabin filter on this stupid thing? Because they want to charge me $80 to change a cabin. And I'm like, the filter itself costs $12. What am I doing here? So I tell anybody at any point, I'm like, look, if you think if the dealership or wherever you take it says that you need an engine filter and a cabin filter change, don't let them do it. Do it yourself. And I said, if you can't figure out how to do it, I'll come and do it, because it takes 15 minutes.
Yeah.
Literally 15 minutes. And you're going to save yourself hundreds of dollars over the life of the car. Now, not everybody's going to be able to do brake jobs and everything else like that. I get it. But a cabin filter and an engine filter, trust me, I don't care how mechanically uninclined you are, you can do it yourself and save a ton of money. YouTube has been fantastic for that.
Yeah. And I've used it a lot. You know, we do live in a park model camper, 40 feet
Right.
long. It's got some things and not really in my realm. And I go, oh, that fan's out. And it's a quick hit on YouTube. You find out, yep, they're Chinese manufactured. They're built by the millions. You just need to drop this bolt, move that, redo this, and you're done. And you don't have to call the RV tech out who charges $150 service call and then $150 an hour to come fix it, because it's on YouTube. And why I also like about it is this something I can do, or do I really need to call the professional and bring them in on this?
Yep.
Because we had an electrical problem, and I quickly realized not for me, so we'll bring in the expert. But yeah, I mean, who doesn't love YouTube, right? I mean, it's just, and there's other entertaining stuff. I know my dad watches this cowboy cooking channel because the guy's out on, cooking on cast iron on coals. And just loves it. He finds that more entertaining than anything else on TV.
Sure.
Is watching this guy cook. So I think, YouTube, I totally get why we use it. The other two, social media stuff, man, I've like you become so, yeah, why do we really need this? And you don't, you honestly don't, like I said, other than for me, just keeping up with certain friends and family because they exist there. I don't need to tell you too much going on, because if you're important enough, I would have called and told you.
Yeah, that's the way I feel about it. And I feel that Carrie started her, or not started, but did a Facebook account for, like, again, like you said, Facebook Marketplace, all that kind of stuff. Because when we're moving, she's trying to get rid of boxes or finding other things. So she's like, I'll put it up on here. And now, like, I guess some of the teachers that the school that she's at have seen it. So she was like getting friend requests all the time. She's like, I don't want to be, it's not that I'm not friends with these people. She's like, but I don't need to connect to them on Facebook. I said, well, just ignore them then. It's like, if they say anything to you, like, hey, you haven't accepted my friend request, you just go, yeah, I haven't been on Facebook in months. They'd just be like, I just have it for the marketplace and I don't pay any attention. So they're fine. And said, if they get offended, you don't need them anyway. Like, that's the way I look at it.
The great help for me was, I guess it was when I was full-time and I was a supervisor. When I first started out, I was at an HR conference and they said, hey, as a supervisor manager, do not be friends with your other employees.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Because it's not as much as it's the separation. Because if you see something, if someone said something and you're in a supervisory or management role, you're going to be responsible for it if you don't act on it.
All right. Sorry for that little technical difficulty here. I lost internet here at my house. So this little jump cut might look a little weird to people, but hey, you know what? We're being honest about it. We're not pros. Things happen sometimes. So you're saying that they were telling you not to be friends with folks that were working under you, right? Not with you. Just
in general. I mean, it was more importantly people under you that you supervise and you're responsible for, but they were also saying, hey, it's also good practice not to be too involved with any coworkers, same level of management, but just because it draws you into things that you may not want to be in a professional sense. That, I'm working with Joe Blow, my co-manager, and from their Facebook posts that, they spent all weekend just trashed out of their mind. So I just, possible, but that's what they said. It's just why they were saying from an HR perspective, your best recourse is not to be too involved with online social media, with coworkers, subordinates, etc.
Yeah, I mean, it's completely different, but kind of that same realm of, coaching. I coach high school basketball as well. I don't have any of their, I don't know any of their social media stuff. I don't follow any of them. None of it. Don't have their phone numbers, their emails, none of it, because again, you don't want them seeing your life. Not that there's anything untoward going on in my life anyway, but you don't want that. And again, you just don't want to be put in that situation, especially coaching girls basketball that has anything to do that would be inappropriate at all. And same thing, I don't want to know what they're doing. I don't want to watch
Right.
your. I'm not on TikTok anyway, but I don't want to watch your TikTok videos. I don't
Yeah.
want to like. You want to tell me about your weekend, then you'll tell me about your weekend. I don't need to see it on my own and be like, oh, that's not a great look. In fact, we tell them all the time. I'm the one they laugh at me every year because I'm always like, look, stay off of social media. Like, just don't. Why? And a lot of it is like if you go and beat a team, like I'm always like, stay off of social media. Don't post anything about, oh, we just beat them by 30 or whatever it is. Like, who cares? Celebrate with your team. You want to be like, oh, Jessica had a great game. Perfect. Don't mention the other team at all. Don't even bring it up. And they laugh and they're like, well, they're like, everybody else does. I'm like, yeah, we're not everybody else. We're not doing that. Like, I'm not having it. So.
But no, I think it's a great idea. I just, some stuff will come back to haunt you in ways you never thought of, right?
Yeah.
And I think that's the other angle to look at it as, you may have been 18 when XYZ happened, but the internet, as we know, doesn't die.
It's forever.
Things are still out there. And if you're 42 running for Congress, that's going to show up. I guarantee it. So, yeah, in other simple ways, you just never know when it's going to come back and how it's going to be used. And my son's been good. He doesn't really use it a lot. And I forewarned him. I said, hey, don't get overly involved in this stuff because you just don't know how it's going to come around back to you at some point.
Yeah,
exactly. Don't trash a friend. Don't do this. Don't do that. Just, if at best, do pictures of what you're eating for dinner, right? People make fun of that, right? But that's your safest angle, honestly.
I mean, it's funny
because they want to claim you're a vegetarian and you ate steak a year ago.
Right. Well, when we were growing up, it was, the three-way calling where you'd be like, okay, we're going to call this girl. We're going to figure out if she likes you or not or whatever, but you're going to be on the line as well. Just, you got to be quiet. Don't say anything. Now they have like all the Snapchat stuff and everything that's supposed to disappear. And I tell them all the time, I'm like, you could take screenshots of any of this stuff and then they have it. Like, so if some boy is trying to convince you to send him something like, some picture, like you think that's just going to disappear. It's not. I used to have this conversation all the time with my ex's two younger kids when they were in high school. And I'd always be like, you don't want to get involved in any of that stuff. Like, even I think we talked about before, even like their cameras that they would, that was always new when they get their laptops or they didn't have like the nice cameras that, that we're using now. They just had a little laptop camera. And I was always, they would, because FaceTime was new and everything. So they would FaceTime with their friends as they're doing makeup and everything else. And I'm always like, who else is in that room with them? And they'd be like, what do you mean? I'm like, well, you're sitting there in just like a pair of shorts and like a bra and you're getting ready. And that's fine. Cool that you and your friend are just talking. I said, but do you trust your friend enough that there's not somebody else in that room?
Yeah.
With her. And, you could see them kind of be like, well, what do you mean? I'm like, you can only see a certain amount of the room. I said, that doesn't mean that their boyfriend isn't sitting back on the bed behind them or whatever it is and can see everything you're doing as well. I said, just think about it. I said, I'm sure there are friends of yours that you can trust to say like there's nobody else in the room. I said, but when you're just hanging out and it's somebody that you normally wouldn't face, I was like, just be aware. So, I mean, it's the same type of thing. I mean, it's all that type of stuff. So, all right, last one here. I'm going to see if you agree with this one. 48%, so almost half of Gen X watches reruns every week. And it says that the comfort TV, as they call it, reruns, seems to be very important to Gen X. All right, I will preface this by saying there was another stat that said we watch more TV than anybody else 5 hours a day. I don't necessarily agree with that. I can't tell you the last time I watched a rerun on television.
So I guess that's where we get into what are they considering a rerun? Is it television, streaming, etc.? So I will admit I have gone back and watched old shows that I could on streaming.
Sure.
Because now I can binge watch it, right?
Right.
You know,
Right.
Miami Vice, I can watch it all now. Right now, just as a side story, you know, I go to sleep to Seinfeld at night, just about done with that, because I can watch the whole thing.
Right.
Is it comfort? I don't know if it's necessarily comfort that I'm going, oh, this is necessarily better than anything new. It's just the fact that I have access to these older programs and all of it at once and can just go through it. But I understand the flip side of probably that is they're trying to say that we don't like the new stuff. We're sticking with the old stuff. But I question delivery and volume on that front of how they're coming up with that statistic.
Well, and I don't know that it's just Gen X, because again, going back to my ex's kids, I can remember when like Hannah Montana was a thing.
Okay.
And they would watch over and over and over and over and over again, like the same, or any of those Nickelodeon Disney type shows that would be 3 to 4 years old. And they would still go back and watch them over and over and over again. And I always looked at it and was like, why do they watch? Like, you know, every joke, you know, like, why are you watching these over and over again? And the response from mom was, well, you know, I guess they've done research on this stuff that kids especially like familiarity. Okay. And so they know that this is familiar to them, that they're going to enjoy it. So it doesn't matter that they've seen it 100 times. I mean, you probably remember this when your son was little. They would watch or listen to the same song on repeat over and over and over again. I've never understood that.
The movie Cars, Thomas the Tank Engine.
See?
Like over and over and over and over again. So, yep, I get that, but he doesn't do that anymore. So, I don't know. And
well, I would hope he's not watching Tommy the Tank Engine anymore, or whatever it is.
Well, if it's comfort, I don't know. But I will say there are certain movies. So at work, you know, I'm on shift 24, 48, 60 hours sometimes. And a lot of times it's live sports news that we just leave up on the TV in the background because I'll read, other people are studying. It just depends on what's happening. But I have to admit, it's more of a movie thing. Certain movies will come on of flipping through the cable and go, oh, Hunt for Red October's on again. And we'll just throw it up and leave it.
Right.
Now, am I engrossed in it? And no, I know what happens. And there is a comfort because it's there, because I look at the other options and go, whatever. So, yeah, I'm trying to tease out where they're coming with their statistic that we have to watch reruns. And I don't know if it's because...
Well, it doesn't say you have to. It just says that you do every week.
Yeah. But I don't watch reruns necessarily. If I'm going to sit down and watch TV, I'm not choosing a rerun to watch. Like Seinfeld, I put that aside because that's just something I fall asleep to. I last 30 minutes and I'm gone. So, but I'm not actively engaged. Like, I'm watching this to see the content and enjoy myself. So I don't. Yeah, that one's hard. But I could see where some people would, And I question, is it reruns that just randomly pop up on TV, or are they like me? They're seeking out, like, I'm going to watch all 10 episode seasons of Friends or this show or that show just because I like that show, kind of thing.
Right. Yeah. I mean, again, I can't think of the last time that I was like, oh, we need to watch this TV show. Mm-hmm. Just like new TV. Perfect example. They did we were playing, my fiance, Carrie, her niece and nephew were here visiting for Thanksgiving. And we played the new version of Trivial Pursuit. Okay. I say new, it was like, I think 2016 or whatever. I mean, I didn't know. And
still a decade old.
Yeah. And I was just like, okay, cool. I mean, we won, but a lot of it was because, the newer stuff, because again, Carrie's like, I was never good at this as a kid. I was like, yeah, because you were a kid. You were a teenager probably when this came out. We didn't know any of this stuff because they're asking about like 50s television. That's why your parents were like, you just didn't know it. You didn't know what they were. So one of the questions that we got was about the Big Bang Theory. And I was like, I've never seen an episode of that show ever. So I had no idea. I got the question wrong, of course, because I was like, nothing. I got no idea. But, and then there was questions about like the Real Housewives, series. No idea. Had no clue. And her daughter sitting next, she's like, you guys are getting all the easy ones. I'm like, what are you talking about? I'm like, and I'm answering theirs because they didn't know some of the things. I'm like, oh, that's a gimme. And they're like, we have no idea. So it just depends on where you are. But that just made me think, like, I don't know Big Bang Theory at all. I don't know what was the other spinoff from the Big Bang Theory. I don't even remember.
I have no idea.
Yeah,
okay.
I think Young Sheldon is a spinoff from that. And I only know this because they would advertise it on the NFL games.
Oh.
So I'm always like, okay, there's a thing called Young Sheldon. Like I could not tell you right now the sitcoms, if there are any, that are on NBC.
Nope.
No clue. None.
Yeah, and I think that's part of the, I question this quote unquote rerun statistic because the paradigm has shifted. I don't know from our days to now what is network television anymore. It was the big three: ABC, NBC, CBS, Fox,
and Fox,
right? Yep. And you remember the old must-see TV on Thursday nights,
sure.
NBC, right? That was the crown jewel for them. That was the big thing. I don't think it exists anymore because there's so many other cable options, streaming options.
Yeah.
And especially these newer generations, they are not beholden to these CBS, these networks like they were back in the day for us. So that's why I think it's all just shifted now.
It goes back to the branding thing where you were a CBS person or a ABC person or whatever it was. Now you're not beholden to anything other than if you only pay for Netflix or you only pay for Apple. That's the only way you're like brand loyalty is because you don't want to pay for anything else. So
correct. And I think what it has given us is cable sort of did too. You just watch what you like.
Right.
I mean, if you like the series that's on Netflix, you like it and then you watch it.
Right.
If it's, I'm sure there's people out there who do overspend across all the streaming platforms, but we have Netflix. That's the one I pay for because Paramount Plus is free through my phone. Peacock is free. Oh, no, I do buy the Disney Hulu package so that I can watch college basketball. So that's the only reason I spend the money there is because I have to. But I wouldn't go out and buy MGM or any of these others to add more options because honestly, if I didn't need the basketball, I wouldn't have Disney Hulu Plus.
Right.
Netflix, just because there's always movies and I find that their movies tend to be better. Pluto TV, that's kind of my favorite.
Okay.
Because it's like having a cable system on either your phone, your TV, and it's completely free.
Right.
There's sports, not the name brand sports we like, but there's movie channels. There's this. It's all free, and that's what I like about it. Like if you can't find something on there to watch to entertain you for the short term, I don't know what you have going on in your world. So
right. No, it's a great point, but it is interesting, and you go through and think about, okay, like you said, you've got all these different options, and you're only using them for exactly what it is. Everybody said, oh, the cord cutting was going to kill cable. Well, all it's done is probably in a lot of cases made it way more expensive than cable was, or at least as expensive as cable. Because by the time you add up, 15 for Netflix, 15 for Amazon, it's probably 10 to 12 for Apple. It's, probably 20 a month for Disney, Hulu, ESPN. I mean, I just dropped $130 for ESPN Plus. That doesn't even get me the Hulu and Disney stuff. That's just ESPN Plus.
Oh, wow.
So, I mean, yeah. And that's just, again, for the games, for the basketball games and everything else. So, yeah,
and
it's brutal.
Most of your cable operators turned into your internet provider. So you still got to pay them at least a base charge. So like you said, with cord cutting, did you really save any money by doing that? No, you didn't. You just shifted who you were paying.
If you add it up, I mean, we do YouTube TV, and it still doesn't get. I mean, you still got to have the ESPN Plus to watch the other games, because you'll just get regular ESPNs, but you don't get the Plus, which is where a lot of like the Mason games are and everything else. So you got to have that. And then, on top of it, that doesn't get you your Amazon. That doesn't get you your Netflix with, Stranger Things and all that. I mean, so yeah, I mean, I guarantee you we're well over $100 a month in streaming stuff. It's crazy. So anyway, I think that that should probably just about do it. I think we covered most everything that's on this list that I got to. We didn't get to the emails where Gen X checks emails more than any other generation. I think that's just because we work harder than anybody else, to be honest with you. I think that's what a lot of it has to do with. The baby boomers have kind of aged out of still being in work.
They're retiring, yeah.
Yeah, and we're in our kind of prime. We're now in the higher offices, if you will. But it says, yeah, we check email 9 to 10 times a day, more than any other generation.
I disagree with that. I think we just have to, because it's the nature of the world. Because
Right.
at work, I can tell you in my business, no one calls anyone anymore. You either get a
Right.
text or you get an email. That's
Right.
how you communicate. So not that I'm constantly checking. I just know, emails came in. Let me see if there's anything particular that I need to know.
Right.
Not checking it for that dopamine, serotonin, like, what's, they talk about
Yeah.
you get that high. Nope. I'm just making sure I'm not missing anything, because that's the communication standard at this point
Well,
with a lot of people I
yes.
work with.
And I think for us, it was when we first got into the workforce, email was starting to hit and everybody started using it. So you just got accustomed to checking it all the time. And then you had the millennials come after us, and texting became more and more important because you could text. And then the next generation, now you've got all these other, again, like I said, Snapchats or whatever else, but email hasn't stayed necessarily as important to them as it was for us, because we grew up with that thing. I think it's a lot of it is when you entered whatever it is, that time period in your life, you kind of stick with, okay, this is the way we've always done it. So we're going to stick with this concept. So yeah, there you go. All right, let's wrap up episode 10 so we can both get off to our Thanksgiving day. Do you have any final parting words for us?
Well, I'm going to read something that favored mine.
Okay.
In the year 1621, the Pilgrims held their first Thanksgiving feast. They invited the great Indian chief Maasayat, who brought 90 of his brave Indians and a great abundance of food. Governor William Bradford and Captain Miles Standish were honored guests. Elder William Brewster, who was a minister, said a prayer that went something like this: "We thank God for our homes and our food and our safety in a new land. We thank God for the opportunity to create a new world for our freedom and justice." And that, my friends, was put together and said by one Linus Van Pelt in the 1973 Charlie Brown Thanksgiving special.
Yes. Perfect way to end it. I have nothing to add. So happy Thanksgiving, everyone. We will see you next week.
This concludes this episode of Gen X Men with Bill Rowland and Gary Dollarhite. Gen X Men is now off the air.